Welcome to Expand Your Empire, the podcast where women stop deferring wealth and start building financial power. I'm Amanda Taylor, investor, strategist, and disruptor of outdated money rules. It's time to own your worth, grow your assets, and build a legacy that lasts.
I want to take you back to a version of me that would not even recognize the woman recording this podcast. She was working in dentistry, stable, capable, doing what made sense. But that is not the story. The story is what she was doing on this side. I fell into real estate the way most women fall into things that actually change their lives, not with a plan, but with a yes. Someone needed help. I had capacity. I said yes. I showed up and I started paying attention. You know, it was assistant work at first. It was part-time. Honestly, it was just a paycheck. But I kept showing up and I started learning. And at some point, after a while, I did my first flip. It was one house. I wasn't thinking even about a portfolio. I wasn't thinking about passive income or legacy wealth or any of this language that I use now. I was thinking about one transaction. What could I make on one house? And then I did another one. And somewhere between that first flip and what I was quietly building without even fully realizing it, something shifted that I didn't even have the language for yet. I was not just earning anymore. I was starting to own. And those two things I would eventually learn are not the same category. They're not even close. Income is what stops when you do. Wealth is what keeps going. I had spent years building income, reliable, hard-earned income that required me to show up every single day to exist. And without a master plan, without a vision board, or a strategy session or coach telling me what to do next, I had stumbled into the other thing. The thing that works while you sleep, as they say. The thing that compounds. The thing that does not care whether you had a good month or a bad month. This is what we're talking about today. Not how to earn more. You already know how to earn. We're talking about what to do with it, what to build with it, what to own. Guys, this is Expand Your Empire. I am Amanda Taylor, and this episode is about the line I crossed by accident, but I want you to cross on purpose. So I want to start with a definition, two of them actually, because I think a lot of the confusion women have around money comes from using two very different words like they mean the same thing. So income and wealth, we use them interchangeably. She has money, she's doing well, she is successful. And what we usually mean when we say those things is that she earns a lot. Good revenue, strong salary, multiple income streams, all of that stuff. But income and wealth are not the same thing. And the gap between them is where most high earning women get stuck without ever understanding why. So income is what your effort produces. Wealth is what your assets produce. Income requires you. Every day, every client, every project, every sale, the moment you stop, the income stops. It is directly tied to your presence and your output. And for a long time, most of us were taught that this was the goal. Earn well, earn consistently, build a career that pays you. Now, nobody told us that was just the first chapter. So wealth is different. Wealth is what happens when the things you own start producing an income on their own. A rental property that pays you rent every month, whether you show up to work that day or not. A fund that distributes returns on a schedule that has nothing to do with your energy level. A business asset that generates revenue without requiring your direct involvement. You get it. Wealth, it doesn't need you to be present to exist, and that is the whole point. And here's where I want to name something that I think is genuinely painful for a lot of women in my audience. You can have a 7-figure business and no wealth. You can have an incredible income, a beautiful brand, a full client roster, and still have a net worth that does not reflect any of it. Because if everything that you've built lives inside your ability to keep working, you haven't built wealth yet. You have built a very good job. A job that you own, yes, a meaningful one, yours completely, but it's still a job. We celebrate income, 6 figures, 7 figures, that revenue milestone. You hit your launch number. And I'm not saying those things don't matter. They absolutely do. But nobody throws a party when you close on your first rental property. Nobody celebrates the moment that you wire capital into your first fund. Nobody marks the day, you bought into something that will pay you for the next 20 years without asking anything of you in return. They should, because that is the moment the trajectory actually changes. Your business is not the destination, it is the vehicle. What it funds is the destination. So I want to describe a situation, and I want you to tell me, even just to yourself, whether any of this sounds familiar. Your entire financial picture, it lives inside your business. The income it generates, the equity you've built, whatever retirement plan exists, and I'm using air quotes for retirement, all of it is tied to one thing, which means if the business has a bad year, you have a bad year. If the market shifts, you feel it immediately. If you get sick or burned out, or you just need to step back for 6 months, the financial consequences of that decision are severe in a way that genuinely scares you. And maybe you've told yourself that the plan is to sell someday, that the exit is that wealth event, that you will monetize everything you've built when the time is right. Maybe, but someday is not a strategy. And most business owners who plan to sell eventually do not have the systems, the documentation, or the revenue structure to make that exit as valuable as they have imagined. So in the meantime, what you have is a business that pays you well and owns you completely. And if you're being honest with yourself, the financial safety net underneath all of it is thinner than it looks from the outside. Okay, this is not a failure. I want to be really clear about that. This is a gap in what we were taught. Women were taught to earn their way to security, work hard, build a career, be indispensable. Nobody handed us a roadmap for what comes after that. They didn't sit us down and say, at some point you need to stop funding your lifestyle with your income and start funding assets with it instead, because the assets are what create the security, not the revenue. And for the women in this audience who are already investing on the side, I want to name something for you specifically. If your business income is still reactive and unpredictable, every investment decision you make from that foundation carries fear in it. You cannot build long-term wealth from a short-term emotional state. Exactly why we talked about cash flow and control in the last episode before we got here. That sequence matters. We cannot pour from an empty foundation, and you can't build wealth from a base that still scares you every month. So if that is where you are right now, that is okay. That's actually, where most of us are when we find this type of show, this type of platform. The question is not where you are. The question is where you go from here. So let's talk about what owning actually looks like, because I think one of the reasons a lot of women stay stuck in the earning phase longer than they should is that ownership feels abstract, like something that happens to other people with more capital, more time, more financial sophistication. So I want to make it concrete, and I want to start by saying this. The asset landscape is enormous. There are more ways to own something that works for you than most women have ever been shown. private lending, intellectual property, equipment leasing, real estate. The list goes on, and there are entire episodes coming that we go deep on specific vehicles. My Investing 101 course is coming out where we talk about that. But today, I'm going to give you 3 doors as a starting point, not because these are the only 3, but because these are the 3 that I see most often create the first shift for women who are ready to move from earning to owning. Think of this as an entry point and not a ceiling. Now, you don't have to walk through all 3. You don't have to walk through any of them. But by the end of this show, I want you to know, like, if one is calling you, because that clarity is where action starts. So door number 1 is real estate. Now, this is where I started. Again, not because I had a plan. It was because I said yes to a part-time opportunity and started paying attention. I got curious. And what I learned is that real estate is one of the most accessible, most tangible, most psychologically approachable asset classes for women who are ready to move from earning to owning. So here's what it actually does. It cash flows, it appreciates, it gives you tax advantages that your W-2 income or your business simply cannot. And it uses leverage in a way that almost no other asset class does, meaning you can control a significant asset with a fraction of its total value. You put in the down payment, maybe, and the tenant or the market or both does the rest of the work over time. I went from one flip to a portfolio, not overnight or all at once, just one decision at a time. And every property I added was funded by something I had already built. The businesses, the previous properties, the compounding decisions that I maybe made earlier than felt comfortable, but I made them. So if real estate is a door that's calling you, the entry point might be closer than you think. And it starts with understanding what your business income can actually fund and working backward from there. That is a conversation. It's not a mystery. Door number 2, business assets and equity. This is for the woman who wants to own something but doesn't want to become a landlord. And believe me, landlord is not the only way to invest in real estate. This is also for the woman who's not fully looked at what she already owns inside of her business that has value independent of her time. So owning within or adjacent to your business could look like a product line that sells without your direct involvement, intellectual property that generates licensing fees or royalties. I love licensing fees. A stake in another business that maybe you advise but you don't operate. A course, a membership, a system that runs on its own infrastructure. But the question I really want you to sit with here is, what does your business own that would still have value if you stepped away tomorrow? Now, if the answer is not much, that's information. And it's also an opportunity, because the next thing you build inside your business, it might not be another service. It might be an asset. Now, door number 3, this is funds and syndications. This is for the woman who wants to invest, but she doesn't want another job. She doesn't want to manage a property or start another business or spend her weekends learning a new industry. She wants to put capital somewhere and have, people who know what they're doing work on it on her behalf. And that is what a fund looks like. They are passive by design. You invest capital, the operators manage the asset, whatever it is. You receive distributions. The barrier here is not usually money, depending on the asset. It is access and education. Women, as we know, are systematically underrepresented in private investment opportunities, not because they don't have the capital, but because nobody invited them to the table. And that is changing. And it starts with understanding that these vehicles exist and that you are eligible. You likely have more investable capital than you think, especially if your business cash flow is in control and you haven't yet made the intentional decision to deploy some of it into something that works without you. So again, these are 3 doors. but they're doors into a much larger building. The goal today is not to hand you an exhaustive list, it's to get you thinking like an owner. Because once you do, you start seeing opportunities that were always there and just simply never felt like they were meant for you. Owning is not about being rich enough to invest. It's about being strategic enough to start. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. Yeah, that sounds great, Amanda. And also, I am still figuring out my cash flow. I'm trying to get my business to a place that feels stable. I am not ready for this conversation yet. And I will say two things to that. First, you are more ready than you think. The fact that you are even listening to this episode means you are already thinking beyond next month. That is not nothing. That is actually the first move. Second, the sequence matters. You do not jump from reactive income to a real estate portfolio. There are steps and they build on each other. And skipping them costs you more than taking them. So here's the sequence as simply as I can put it. Step one is what we talked about in the last episode. Get your business cash flow predictable, not perfect, predictable. Because you cannot deploy capital you cannot count on. If every month is still a surprise, the foundation is not ready yet. So go back to that episode, do the audit that I gave. Make the one move I asked you to make and then come back here. Now, step two is identifying your investable surplus. And I want to be really specific about what I mean because this is where most people get it wrong. Your investable surplus is not what is left over after everything. What's left over after everything is usually nothing because lifestyle expands to fill available income every time. Your investable surplus is what you decide to set aside before lifestyle gets into it. It is a decision, not a remainder. Pay the asset before you pay the upgrade, before the nicer car, the bigger office, the next thing on the lifestyle list, the asset first, always the asset first. Step three is picking a door and learning it before you diversify. I can't tell you how many women I have watched try to do real estate and a fund and a new business asset and crypto and this and that at the same time and end up doing nothing well. Scattered attention produces scattered results. Pick a door that is calling you. Spend 30 days learning it, not investing yet, learning. Because the first step to owning is understanding what you are buying. And step four is understanding the first asset funds the next one. This is how wealth compounds, not in a big dramatic move, not in a single windfall moment. It's in sequential, intentional decisions that are made from strategy instead of fear. Your business income funds the first asset. The first asset eventually contributes to the next. And somewhere down the line, you look up and you're the woman who would not recognize the version of herself who was just trying to make extra money. The women I know who have built real wealth did not do it just by earning more. They did it by owning more. And they started earlier than it felt comfortable with, maybe with less than felt safe, because they understood that waiting for perfect conditions is just a longer way of saying no. Now, I told you at the beginning of the episode that I fell into real estate by accident, that I was not executing a plan. I was just saying yes to a paycheck and paying attention. Now, what I didn't tell you is that the moment I understood the difference between income and wealth, I couldn't stop seeing it. I couldn't go back to thinking that a good revenue month is the same as financial security. I couldn't pretend that building something that required me every day was the same as building something that could outlast me. That distinction changes everything. Not overnight, not in one transaction, but directionally, permanently, in a way that every decision I have made since then has been shaped by. And that is what I want from you. Not perfection, not a portfolio by next quarter, the distinction, the moment that you understand it in your bones, not just in your head. That's the moment when everything starts to shift. So I guess here's the thing that I'm asking you to do coming out of this episode. Not a big thing, but just one thing. Pick a door. Real estate, business equity, funds, syndication, or any of the other vehicles we will eventually explore on this show. Just pick one that you're interested in and spend the next 30 days learning about it. You don't have to invest yet. You don't have to commit to anything, but just get curious, because clarity is your first asset. And it's one you can start building today. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you own. You've been earning your whole life. It's time to start owning. So if this episode landed for you, I want you to share it. I want you to send it to the woman in your life who is working hard and building nothing that will outlast her effort. She needs this conversation. And if you are ready to sit down and actually look at what your business can fund right now and what your real investable surplus is and which door makes the most sense for where you are, that is exactly what my profit discovery call is for. The link is in the show notes. Guys, I hope that this sparks something in you. Not everyone is going to be a real estate investor. There are so many ways that you can start owning, but it starts with owning your curiosity and owning a plan and just taking that next first step. Until next time, keep building.
If this lit something up, share it, review it, and get in the room. Join the Expand Your Empire community and start turning wisdom into wealth. You're not too late, and you're not doing this alone.